9. 20 years in the shadows. In the ever-shifting landscape of U.S. intelligence programs, most projects live short lives. Some never make it past the planning stage. But Project Stargate, the government's controversial psychic spy initiative, lasted over 2 decades. That fact alone is a mystery worth investigating. From its tentative beginnings in the early 1970s, when the CIA quietly handed a contract to the Stanford Research Institute, all the way to its termination in 1995. The program survived through war, scandal, budget cuts, and waves of skepticism. How? Simple. It kept delivering just enough strange, compelling results to avoid the axe. It started as a reaction to Soviet psychic research. A Cold War chess move meant to level a battlefield that was, quite literally, invisible. But even after the initial panic faded, the program endured, adapting with each new administration, each shift in military leadership. The names changed: Grill Flame, Center Lane, Sunstreak, Scanate, and back to Stargate. Each name signified a new phase, a new command structure, a new funding stream. But the core mission remained the same: use the human mind to gather intelligence. Some years the project was on life support. Skeptics within the military and intelligence communities lobbied to shut it down, calling it pseudoscience, a waste of taxpayer money. But then a viewer would sketch the interior of a classified missile site, and the sketch would match the satellite photos, or describe a hostage's location with uncanny detail. Those rare hits were like lightning, unpredictable, unprovable, but impossible to ignore. That's what kept it alive. Behind closed doors, high-ranking believers defended the program. They weren't saying it always worked. Just that, sometimes it worked too well to be coincidence. And during the 1980s, as unconventional warfare took on new urgency, Stargate was integrated into military intelligence under INSCOM. Viewers were given real-world assignments: terrorist threats, drug trafficking routes, missing assets. For the viewers themselves, the years rolled on in cycles of testing, training, burnout, and hope. They weren't just part of a project, they were part of a belief system, a classified experiment in human potential. By the early 1990s, as the Cold War ended and defense budgets tightened, Stargate began to wobble. Politicians wanted answers. Scientists demanded proof. Public attitudes were changing. In 1995, the CIA commissioned a formal review by the American Institutes for Research. The verdict? Remote viewing showed statistically significant results, but lacked operational reliability. The program was shut down, quietly, no headlines. Just another file marked terminated. But for 23 years, Project Stargate defied logic, politics, and the very definition of intelligence work. It endured not because it always succeeded, but because it occasionally succeeded in ways that couldn't be explained. And in the world of espionage, sometimes that's enough. 10. Secrets in the light. For years, Project Stargate lived in the shadows, hidden behind code names, black budgets, and locked doors deep within government compounds. To those who knew of its existence, it was a strange anomaly. To the outside world, it was just a rumor. That all changed in 1995. It began with whispers in the intelligence community. The program was coming to an end. The Cold War was over, funding was tight, and skepticism had finally caught up with the strange little unit that claimed it could spy with the human mind. The CIA, under pressure from both Congress and the public, ordered an external review. They handed Project Stargate over to the American Institutes for Research, AIR, a civilian organization tasked with answering a simple question: did any of this actually work? The resulting report was diplomatic but damning. While remote viewing showed statistically significant anomalies, indications that something was maybe happening, the reviewers concluded it wasn't reliable enough for operational use. In short, it was interesting but not useful. And just like that, after 23 years of experiments, missions, and debate, the CIA pulled the plug. But rather than bury the files forever, the agency made a surprising move. They declassified the program. Not a summary, not a few redacted pages. Thousands of documents, over 12,000 pages, were made public. The world now had access to decades of session transcripts, analysis reports, training manuals, sketches, evaluations, and internal memos. The news broke quietly at first. No press conference, no big reveal. But soon, investigative journalists, conspiracy theorists, and curious academics began pouring through the files. What they found stunned them. There were accounts of remote viewers describing hidden missile sites, locating downed planes, even attempting to peek inside classified Soviet bunkers. Names like Joseph McMoneagle, Pat Price, and Ingo Swann reappeared. Men once unknown now became central figures in one of the most bizarre chapters in intelligence history. Some sketches were laughably off. Others were disturbingly close to actual reconnaissance data. The CIA, for its part, didn't deny any of it. The program had happened, it had been funded, and yes, it had involved psychic espionage. For the public, the revelation sparked debate. Was this proof that the government had dabbled in the paranormal? Evidence of taxpayer waste? Or a glimpse into real human potential that science had yet to fully understand? The files, still hosted today on the CIA's FOIA archives, remain one of the most downloaded document sets in the agency's history. Some saw the declassification as closure, others saw it as an invitation. Because when you read those reports, something strange happens. The line between reality and fiction blurs. You start to wonder, what if? In revealing the truth, the CIA hadn't killed the story, they had given it a second life. Epilogue. Looking back through the mind's eye. Today, when we think of espionage, we imagine satellite surveillance, cyber warfare, and covert agents operating in enemy territory. But for over 2 decades, the US government quietly explored another possibility, one that defied physics, challenged science, and asked a bold question. What if the most powerful intelligence tool was the human mind itself? Project Stargate was not a sideshow. It wasn't the invention of conspiracy theorists or the subject of a movie script, though Hollywood would later borrow liberally from its story. It was a real government-funded intelligence program, complete with classified memos, psychological protocols, and military applications. At its heart was remote viewing, a method that turned soldiers and civilians into psychic operatives, tasked with locating enemy weapons, hostages, and secrets hidden thousands of miles away. Their battlefield was internal, their training was mental, and their results, sometimes laughable, sometimes eerily accurate. For every failed sketch or fuzzy impression, there were moments that shook even hardened intelligence officers. Like a downed plane described in detail by someone who had never seen it, or a nuclear facility drawn from nothing but a coordinate on a slip of paper. And yet the scientific world remained unconvinced. The evidence was intriguing but inconsistent. The successes were dramatic but unrepeatable on command. In the end, the question was not just does it work, but can we rely on it? The CIA ultimately said no. Not because it was nonsense, but because it couldn't meet the rigorous demands of military intelligence. Stargate was shut down, not because it lacked results, but because it lacked certainty. But its legacy remains. Thousands of declassified pages now sit in the public domain, full of strange visions, sketches of enemy bases, and session notes scribbled under fluorescent lights by viewers trying to see what no one else could. Some believe the government continues this work in secret. Others see it as a Cold War relic, a fascinating, flawed experiment driven by paranoia and desperation. But regardless of where the truth lies, Project Stargate reminds us that even the most powerful governments in the world once believed that the mind might reach across time and space. And for a moment in history, they invested in the impossible.